Okay. Welcome to the third session, which is Advanced Social Media Marketing Panel. We have three distinguished figures from that world sitting on the sofa over there. Actually sitting in the right order as well. We have Joachim Nilsson on the left, who's Managing Director of SCRM Crowd, who also heads up the Social Monitor product for iGaming business. In the middle, we have Jeremy Fool, who's his Social Media Manager for BetClick Everest. And on the right, we have Rasmus Spenningsson, who is a co-founder and COO of Casumo.com. Okay, I'm going to launch into the first question. Feel free after this, though, from the audience, if you have any questions for our panel, want to grill them about anything, just jump in and just put your hand up and we'll run the microphone over to you. I'm going to kick things off with the first question, which is, we've basically had social media in iGaming for about 10 years now. So we've been in the space for over a decade from the beginning. I mean, what's changed? And are mistakes, the old mistakes, being repeated? Do you want to kick that off with Joachim on the left?
I have this thing, I mean, 10 years is a pretty long time, right? I remember when 10 years ago I was at expect.com, and back then we had a webmaster. And a webmaster is sort of like, you don't have a webmaster today. Who in this audience has a webmaster today in their company? No, you don't. You don't have a webmaster. The webmaster was doing the copy, he was doing the IT, he was doing the front end, the back end. He was running the whole site, right? And it was sort of like that with the social media manager as well. Back then, he was doing a bit of everything. A bit of sales, a bit of customer service. I don't think we're there today. I think that social has grown inside the organization. It's extended from the marketing role and from being just a social media manager. What do you think, Jeremy?
You know, it's quite interesting. I think what we tend to do is we just presume social media is just post something on Facebook, stick something on Twitter, and it's done. You know, there's an art. You got to understand more things about social media, and it's not just. I always compare to email. 15 years ago, email was the big thing. You'd send out an email, and then email became more popular for sending out products, sending out information, where social media is now taking over from the emailing of today, where you can send out messages faster, more instantaneous. You can target them to specific people. So it's almost become more of a science within the business, which will probably lead us on to another question of where does social media actually fit within your business? Is it a acquisition? Is it retention? Is it a marketing tool? So social media allows you to do so many different things. So it's sort of growing and expanding within your business.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And I think as with any, like Joachim said, if you go back 10 years, I mean, I think YouTube was launched in 2005. Before then, I remember I got a lot of clips of .3GP, 300 kilobyte movie clips of usually drunk Russian people falling over. YouTube changed that, so now I go there. So it's a long time ago, and I think in the beginning, when there's something new, no matter what it is, you focus a lot on the technology, and you don't really understand the technology until you start using it. So people have been doing a lot of trial and error, and I think what people have come to understand is that it's not as much about technology as it is about people, and that you need to listen, and then you could listen in the sense of looking for brand mentions, but I think also just providing a platform for people to fiddle around and try stuff out and create their own content or speak to each other or speak to the company, and then kind of identifying what trends are happening with the audience and kind of interacting without having any predetermined set of rules, but actually listening to what's happening and then just playing along. That's what ignites people and makes it truly social. And I also think in the beginning, as Joachim said, when it's new and you don't understand it, you need someone to take it on to try to understand it, and then that becomes this one person who takes it all on. But I think that person in our organization nowadays are more like a coach or an enabler or a task force within the organization to enable other people to understand social, because I think it needs to be in any new company's DNA to be a social company, because otherwise you will not be relevant where people are.
Jeremy, you today have the job that I had in your company 10 years ago. And back then, when I was running social, I was a one-man show, sitting in marketing, having to try to test and find out all crazy stuff. How does social media look like today in your company? How are you running it today?
You know, it's sort of changed. It's become a science. For social media to work really well, you need to have a personality for your business. You need to understand what your customers want. You know, it's not about what you think the customers want. It's what the customers are telling you what they want. So we actually have teams. We have dedicated people that create the content for social, that create the videos, that create the imagery, that, you know, send out the message. It's kind of interesting because whatever we do in social media in English gets translated into 14 other languages because of the countries that we're based in. So when you're trying to write something funny, it's really, really funny in English, but in German, it's just not that funny. You know, and that's the hard part. It's about trying to adapt your social to work across multiple channels, multiple platforms, multiple languages. So that is probably the hardest thing that I have to deal with on a regular basis is the fact of, would this promotion work in another country? You don't want to have 20 different promotions running at the same time. You want some uniformity, but the only way to get that uniformity is normally by the use of imagery and videos. Obviously, videos are working so well on social media right now, and you get great landing, you get great audience because Facebook are obviously pushing those images. So it's about trying to decide, can you get an image to say the message, and then the actual written stuff is just you know, a little message driving people to that traffic. So it's really, really difficult. And you know, 10 years ago, you probably had one Facebook page for your whole business. We have 96 Facebook pages, 120 Twitter accounts, 17 languages. So it's finding out, how do you report on that information? How do you understand if it's working? What's engaging? Are people engaging with that content? So that's where it's not just putting stuff on Facebook, it's analyzing it, it's using programs, it's scheduling messages. You know, the most important thing is to talk to the customer at the right time. If you're speaking to a poker player, you don't send them a message at 11 o'clock in the morning because they're all fast asleep. You know, you've got to send those messages out at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. So you're getting the right tools to communicate. And as I say, it's become a team effort. It's not just an individual effort.
I mean, just staying on the markets aspect. I mean, obviously Betclic operates across a number of different markets. From a you say about the language, you have to be different languages and there's different player behaviours and habits and things. I mean, how much does regulation come into play across these different country markets? Is there things you do in some markets and not in others? And if so, how do you manage that? How do you govern that within the organisation?
Regulation probably takes up about 70% of my time. You know, dealing with suppliers. Facebook, Twitter, very much stick to the rules. You know, there's certain things that we can't do. So what we actually do is we break the markets up into different levels and different categories: regulated, unregulated. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. I have weekly discussions with Facebook. You know, this is what we want to do. Can we do this? How can we get around this? How can we do that? Twitter, if you want to advertise, you can only advertise in regulated markets, so they're really easy, but you can say whatever you want on content-wise, where Facebook is completely different. You can't have links out to Real Money Gaming, or you can have links out. You know, you can't have certain images. So you have to think, right, if I can't have information in an image, let me make a video. So what you can do is you can stream that message in with the video. You can plant messages in. So it becomes a bit of a technicality. So compliance is really, really difficult. Okay.
Rasmus, do you have anything to add on that from a Casimo perspective?
Regulations doesn't take 70% of my time.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we're in a bit of a different situation. I guess we have one product, one or two licenses now. So for us, it's not really a big issue like that. But on the other hand, like being a gambling company, US-based companies tend to have, at least in the past, been a bit afraid because they don't really understand what's happening in Europe. Basically, I think so. On by default, they're banning everything that has with gambling to do. So there are a lot of interesting and cool stuff you can do with social, but since we're in this space, you're kind of limited and kind of can't do all the things that other companies can't do, which also is a kind of a creative challenge, which makes it frameable and fun as well. But I think it's harder with gambling, especially in certain markets.
But just to add on that, from the 1st of July, Facebook's legislation and EU regulations will be done from London, not from the States. So they'll be using a European legal team. So it's going to make our jobs a lot easier because they will understand the market a little bit more than the Americans, because that's the biggest thing. American just says, no, you can't do it. You know, Facebook policies are driven for the American market. So even for affiliates and actual gaming companies, it's going to be a lot more easier to actually talk and discuss Facebook and talk about your products, because they're actually going to understand what your license restrictions are within the EU.
Sometimes I wonder how much is really about Facebook's policies and how much is about Facebook's stock price. Last time I had a Facebook page taken down, we tried to chase a couple of people over at Facebook, and when we finally got contact with them, they said, well, it's perfectly fine to have your page back. Just need to spend 50K with us a month, even though we were not regulated or we were a .com page. So, I mean, if you have the money to spend, I think you can do pretty much anything with Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably a bit harsh. You know, I think that they have to apply with rules. They do get a lot of pressure from countries. Poland, they're very, very engaged with the government there because of the policies that the government set. So, you know, talk to Facebook, talk to your local representatives in your countries. They have a vast amount of knowledge, and you know it is frustrating, but you can come right by putting the effort in and building those relationships. So anything social, speak to the to the networks themselves directly. But it does help to spend some money on advertising. But you know, if they won't let you do it, you gotta talk to them and get those things right.
Who have you found to be most helpful, speaking to Twitter or Facebook?
You know, I'm quite lucky. I just go to their office and then they have to see me. But Facebook's really, really good. You have to get up early in the morning to catch them. I think 11:30 at night, European time's the best time, because that's when the Americans are awake, because the guys in Ireland just defer everything to the States for now. But Facebook's really good to talk to if you can get that contact and get that right name.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience for the panel? If not, I'll... Oh, there's one over there. Sorry. Just have to juggle between you now and the other way.
Good morning. Just a question. What can you do with Facebook gambling-wise? What kind of action can you make, or what's within the limits of Facebook or Twitter?
Sorry, how do you mean?
Well, you use Facebook and Twitter, and the main thing is to get people playing at your company, right? What kind of things can you promote on Facebook and Twitter that's allowed in Europe, Netherlands?
Right, okay. For regulated markets such as Italy, France, the UK, Greece, you can do whatever you want. Okay, they will allow you to put links out to Real Money Gaming videos, run competitions, run promotions, and you can spend as much as you want on creating that awareness. For unregulated markets, you cannot spend any money with a link that has anything to do with Real Money Gaming. So for unregulated market, it's about promoting competitions, creating events, promoting learn to play videos, that sort of stuff, educational pieces. promoting responsible gaming. Okay, so it's about, once again, it's about creating awareness of your brand, where you're hoping that someone will see that advert, watch the video, enter the competition, and the brand association comes in with that. So it's about, once again, it's about being creative and trying to find, I don't want to use the word loopholes, but find ways that you can promote those things by running some really good promotions. Find out what's happening in the industry. If the Apple Watch is being launched, run a promotion in conjunction with that, because then you can target and you can create that awareness. Twitter, you've got no chance. If you're not in a regulated market, you can't do any advertising with them whatsoever. We will target, for example, in the UK, we're allowed to advertise. So what we would do is we would promote to Polish people in the UK, hoping that they would share that message, retweet it with people who live in Poland. So it's about being a little bit more sort of thinking out of the box.
Which is kind of ironic, because since you can't pay or you can't buy anything, you need to do the stuff that are the nature of social, which is actually creating content that people care about, that they want to speak about, because you can't really reach out by paying for it. So I think that's a bit funny that in the markets where you're not allowed to be are the markets that you actually need to do social the best.
That's why you probably you need to spend a lot more time. If you can't advertise, spend that money on really, really good visual content. That's what's going to make people share your stuff. That's the sort of information. There's an interesting synergy. Do any of you know what dynamite fishing is? Okay, so what they do in a couple of countries is they will get a stick of dynamite and they'll throw it in the sea and it'll explode and fish come to the top. They scoop them up. Okay. 80% of the fish die and go to the bottom. If you just throw stuff on Facebook, you're only going to be reaching a certain amount of people. Okay. So it's really, really important to think about how you're going to catch those people. What if you go back to the fishing? If you're a trout fisherman, are you going to use a floating line? Are you going to use what type of lure? So that's exactly the same you need to do on social, is identify what your customers like. If you're speaking to a poker person, put a poker offer, put a poker blog, put a really imaginative poker picture on there. It's going to catch them and they're going to start to engage with your product. Don't just put a deck of cards and say, want to play poker. That's not going to catch them. It's about having the picture of a traditional, really zany poker player with the glasses, you know, flames, the cards, whatever. It stops people, especially on a timeline. What you need to remember is 70% of all Facebook traffic is now on a mobile phone. Okay. When you flick through your screen on a mobile phone, you only stop at stuff that catches your attention or your imagination. How many of you will just scroll and as soon as you see a really funny video, stop, click on it and watch that video? Or see a really funny picture. So it's really, really important. That's where that content comes in to what you need to start doing on the social.
I had another take on the gentleman's question there, and going back to what you said, Rasmus. What I do a lot, I monitor what people are saying about brands. So we've been talking a lot about what you can publish on your own proprietary social media channels, your own Facebook page, your own Twitter account. But there's a whole world of universe of me, you, everyone in here with our own social media profiles, right? And we publish content. And in the industry, a brand like Bet365 are being mentioned 50, 60,000 times a month. And talking about reach, we did an exercise where we tried to compare the reach of a brand's own social media channels. Right? So let's say you have 10,000 followers, that's your potential reach. And the reach of the combined audience mentioning a brand like Bet365. The numbers varied, but we saw that the reach of the combined audience could be anything from 10 to 50 times larger than the reach of your own social media channels. So that goes back to what Rasmus said, doing things that makes people want to talk about your brand. And that's not necessarily producing good content, but it could be to have exceptional customer service or an exceptional experience. It goes down through the whole organization of what can impact things.
Okay.
Hello. I totally agree. It's and also, I mean, since everyone is online and can get anything at any time, it's a lot about being the least irritating brand out there. So you need to be enough in people's lives for being part of their lives and where they are. But I mean, if you screw them over or you cross that line, they're gonna click you away and you will never get back to the feed again. So you need to be step down from the B2C thinking and become part of the audience and kind of be the same as your customers and let them be part of you. Because I mean, just shooting messages as people, they're gonna be. At least I get really frustrated when brands try to interfere with my life in a way that I don't like, and then I don't really like those brands, and I choose another brand.
Okay, we touched on it a little bit in terms of tools and technologies. I mean, how much do tools and technologies matter today, and which ones do you guys use as well?
I think if you take a step back, I guess working at BetClick and working at Casumo is a bit different because BetClick has been around for a longer time. It's a huge organization. Casumo is pretty small. We've been around for 2 years. So that means that we could build social into our DNA from the beginning. So that's why I think it starts a lot with people, like anything. So you need to have the right people. Then you need to have the right processes. But then you also need to have the technology. But for me, technology is kind of the things that make you make a reality out of the things that the people can come up with. So unless you have the right approach, unless you have the right minds in your organization and the right processes to facilitate that communication structure where everyone can be part of it, it's going to be really, really hard to just slap on a few technologies to make it seem trustworthy or real, which is a big part of social, I think. So I think technologies are extremely important, but only when you have the other things right.
Okay. Do you find, in terms of finding the right people, I mean, is that a difficult process for you? I mean, do you find you try a lot of people out? I mean, how do you go about sort of recruiting for this area, finding these people? I
mean, where we started here was about that a long time ago you had social as a part of the company, like just one-man show doing stuff. Now I see it as an extension of everything the company does, which essentially is the brand, which should come from the people. The brand shouldn't just be a logo or a color. It should be the actions, the behaviors, and the attitudes of the people in the company. And then if you become transparent through social and let people speak to your customers, that's going to shine through. So less of storytelling and more story doing. And if that comes from recruiting for any position, then you get the right people. So I'm not necessarily speaking about recruiting for a social department, but more kind of people who understand the digital world in a good way.
Okay. Have a question? Hey, do we have a question down here? Hello? Thank you. That's all right.
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned earlier all the visualization, and my question goes to the production of these particular, videos that you're working on. Are you doing them in-house, or are you producing them out of house, or are you getting them somewhere else? And if so, which do you find to be, the best of breed?
It's kind of interesting. I was lucky enough to go to a Facebook conference where we discussed content, and certain content works better depending on your audience. That it comes back to the tools and all of that. But we will make our own videos. We will get videos that are supplied by the manufacturer. If you've got a new game, they will tend to send you a video which you can publish. The problem is they tend to be quite long. They're like a 3-minute introduction video with gameplay. So what we tend to do is we tend to make 30-second videos, which is made using screen capture, because it just, people want to see what the game's about. They want to see the flashing, they want to see the lines, they want to see the bonuses, that sort of stuff. So the videos need to be, have you all heard of the saying KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. That is the best philosophy for social media. Keep things simple, keep your costs down, and get the right content. Understand what your customers are seeing. I will spend a good 5 or 6 hours a week seeing what videos our competitors are using, seeing how many likes, shares, interactions that they are getting, and saying, right, well, that was really, really good. The customers don't like the really heavy animated videos that don't actually tell them about the game, because they want to play that game. They want to see how it works. They want to see the feel of that game. There was a big discussion whether you actually have the game playing within a mobile phone screen, because that's what the customers are going to be playing it on. That is what they're going to be seeing themselves. So it's about that perception. Spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on making videos is probably not the right way to go. You want real, simple content, and it doesn't have to have super visual effects and stuff like that. Real, simple information. Going back to I hope, does that answer your question? Yeah. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Going back to technology, you know, social media, it's not just about having a guy who can do social media. Now you've got social media strategists who will come up with content plans, you know, where we're going to be in 3 years' time. My first 3 months at BetClick was trying to identify what we have, what we don't have, what we need, when do we want it introduced, timelines, deadlines. You know, when do we want to set these sort of targets up? The second part was saying, right, what tools do I need? We use 3 main tools at BetClick. We use Sprout Social, which we use for scheduling, basic analytics. All the content teams can have access to it. They can see what's working. I encourage them to go and have a look. And if you had a spike on a specific day where you got additional followers, what did you say? What really, really worked well? Okay, if you lost 20 fans on that day, what did you say? Did you post too many times? Was your content not very good? So by using real simple tools to do that, and then we use SCRM. We're running a 2-phase with SCRM. The first stage is I'm not bothered too much about what our competitors are doing, how many views, how many hits. I first want to see what we're doing. How often are we posting? Who's looking at our content? How many times it's being shared? Once I understand how we're doing, then I'll start to worry more about our competitors. So the first phase using SCRM is regular posting. Who is our audience? Who's our ambassadors? Understanding that John Smith tweets everything we do, he retweets it. Right, let's take John out for lunch because he's a brand ambassador. He promotes our stuff. He has a blog. You know, let's understand those customers. Let them be our ambassador. There's all sorts of stats out there that 80% of purchases are done on recommendations. Okay, people are going to buy your service, do your service, recommend it from their friends. Or just went on to Monte Carlo Casino. What a really great experience. Oh, I'm going to have a look at that. It also works the opposite way. How many of you use TripAdvisor in the room? How many of you, when you came to Amsterdam, decided to look on TripAdvisor at your hotel and had a look? Oh, God, only had 3 stars. I'm not staying there. Okay, so it works both ways. Okay, it's really, really important to understand what people are saying about your brand. Okay. And then the third tool that we use is just for monitoring and how do we integrate our social with our CRM. Okay. Because once again, when you're doing a social campaign, make sure you're saying exactly the same as what you're saying in an email that you're sending out to customers. You don't want to confuse people. If you're doing an email promotion, make sure that you're talking about on social. If you're doing a casino promotion, make sure you're talking to those people in the casino team to make sure that you're sending out the same message. You're not confusing your customers. Okay.
Joachim, I see you.
I'm obviously mega biased when it comes to technology, so I second everything Jeremy said. Now, running the social media monitoring solution in the iGaming industry, I obviously think it's a no-brainer for everyone to monitor what's being said about their brand and using that data and insights in the organization. coming back to your question about outsourcing or running things in-house, I think definitely outside the iGaming industry, there is a trend of running things inside a company, of setting up sort of like your own media house inside the company. You need to be quick and respond quickly to things that happens, not necessarily doing real-time marketing like Red Bull and the guys, but the more you outsource, the more you lose control of the rapidness, the agility, and the things you can do. I think it's an important skill for brands and organizations to have today, to be able to communicate and to produce content. And a skill that very few iGaming companies unfortunately have today. Paddy Power is one company that has it, Kazoo is another, and BetClick is obviously a third.
No, I think that goes back to what we spoke about earlier as well. Like, if you do them internally or externally, it's not the thing that's going to make or break if that video is working or not. It's about, if you draw the analogy of casino games and social. So you wouldn't, many of the questions we've discussed here today, you wouldn't ask about casino games because you know you need to have graphics. You need to know you need to have sound. But you also know that you need to have the right mechanics in place. What triggers people psychologically. And the same thing goes with social. So social is also a game. You need to understand what triggers people to behave in a certain way in a community, to become friends with people, and how to bond emotionally with people. So that's why you need the people in the organization that are probably either doing this every day in their personal lives, have grown up with it, and kind of natively understands it to strike that emotional chord in people. Then you can do it externally with big budgets. That will work sometimes if you do extraordinary content. Or you can just pick up your phone and say something 2 seconds, and that will also work if you hit that right chord, you know? So I think that's the most important thing. And then operationally, if you want to do it externally or internally, that comes second to me.
You know, some of the best content that's worked for us is where you're sitting in front of a TV watching a goal being scored. You rewind it on your live TV and you film it on your iPhone and you post it. That is raw material that people love. Okay, it just shows that you don't have to spend lots of money. Sorry. I also maintain that you can do more with 100 euros in advertising than what you can do with 1,000 euros if you're targeting the right people at the right time and you know what they're interested in.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Time to jump in. Oh, I've got another one. Focusing on social media marketing, can you get the same financial results spending less on paid advertising?
This is really yours, Jeremy. Jeremy has a fantastic story about this one.
I was once challenged by Facebook to see if I could get more people to engage with a post with £100, and they did the same with 1,000, and I virtually had double the amount of people engaged with the post, because what I did is I went and I found that information about our customers. We're really, really lucky where I previously worked, excuse me, that I was actually able to target people who ordered a specific drink, who played a specific game. So as long as you have that information, you're able to target those people and generate better results.
My take on that would be not necessarily advertising, but going back to the audience that talks about, that speaks about your brands. I think that's a very underused area. Doing things that makes the audience talk about you for very, very little money. Is it, for example, is it impossible to train everyone in the organization to create social media content and give them access to your Facebook page or your Twitter profile, talking about running things in-house or outsourcing them? It's not necessarily super difficult skills, or it's not necessarily a full-time position. It's potentially things that everyone in the organization could contribute to, doing social media content?
There's an interesting campaign. Aston Martin wanted to sell used cars. So I don't know if you've ever seen the advert. You can Google it. It's really, really good. What they did is they had a really attractive lady standing next to a bar, and they said, who cares if it's second-hand? Okay, Aston Martin cars. And they published it on Facebook. They didn't spend any advertising, and within a day, it had 3.5 million shares. So just go Google Aston Martin used cars, and that's where it's really, really simple. It's not a fancy ad. It wasn't shot on TV, spending millions. It's just really, really simple content.
Rasmus, do you have anything to add on this front?
Well, I guess everything shifted a bit. So since all communication channels are open all the time, anything can spread anywhere all the time. So before you, I mean, if you compare to TV, for instance, you put in the money, you know this target group will see this message on average this many times. Great. It's a bit on the flip side if you go to social. So instead you need to invest in the idea or in the content for it to spread. And that doesn't necessarily mean distribution then. I think things have changed the past 5 years when it comes to algorithms on Facebook and stuff like that. But I think to answer the question if it's possible, absolutely yes. I think it's getting harder because the outlets are controlled for Facebook and Google to make money. So that's also why I think you need to build your own content platforms to be able to ship traffic in between different platforms. But to answer the question in a simple way, yes. And I think the way to do that is, again, to invest in the ideas, creativity, and the content, and understanding kind of what social means in terms of more than buttons and technology.
Okay. Anybody any more to add on that?
Yeah.
I think Jeremy's ready to go.
You know, and I think what you need to do is you need to look at your own Facebook pages, and if they're boring, if the content is crap, that's exactly what your customers are thinking. Okay, so look at your pages regularly. Look at the content that you've got on there and think, oh, I like that, I would share that. Okay, it's really, really important because that's what's going to work. Okay, it's about the content working, being shareable, and fun. Facebook needs to be fun. Paddy Power's great. They make their stuff really, really fun. That's their brand. But also you need to get a balance. You can't just sell on Facebook. You need to have that discussion, the fun part of it, as well as the sell. So it's the balance.
Any more questions? We're going to the last 5 minutes, so okay, got a couple here. I think you just went up just in front, but we'll get you in a sec. We'll get you straight afterwards.
How's it going? Just it's a bit of an open question here, but any thoughts on the future of social media marketing? You know, is it going to become more restrictive? Any new platforms that might come about that might overtake Facebook? Are Facebook going to continue to rise? Do you think they might peter out and fall?
For me, hopefully, in the future, it will be such an integrated and natural part of every company. So this would actually be more of a marketing session or a brand building session, and then a specifically social session. So I think social is here to stay. When it comes to platforms, I get that Facebook and Google will be around for a while longer. But I mean, I tend to come back to that it's social is the top of the iceberg of what's being done in your organization, and it's a great way to kind of show vulnerability to your brand and that you're not perfect, because people will not want to see shiny web pages with stock photos, and they tend to trust people that are like them more than company pages or executives. So I think companies will win by being more transparent, and that in the long run there's really no choice, and it's harder to become a a bad guy in a more transparent world?
I think there is a danger to new tools, platforms, and technologies, and that danger is called the new shiny object syndrome. I think every new year there's a new platform coming out. There is Snapchat, there is Periscope, and people in our organization will ask, shall we be on that platform? Should we open a new account there and there? And I think it's really about finding your north, setting your north and following that, and not getting distracted by new platforms, new technologies. But as we talked about before, learning the skills of communicating and doing great content. If you have those skills, like companies like Paddy Power have, then you're probably going to be very successful on new platforms if you try out Periscope, if you try out Twitch or whatever that might be. But if you don't have those skills, if your social media channels aren't connected to your customer service department, then you're just adding another distraction in your company. I think that's the danger, I see.
I hope social around for a long time. I've got kids to put in university. But, you know, I think what you need to do is you need to analyze. It's like anything. New platform comes. What benefits does it have for my customer first? What benefits does it have to the shareholders of the business? How much effort do I have to put into it? You know, am I going to put a lot of effort in and get no reward? I get asked a lot, are you guys on Instagram? And I say, well, do we really want to see lots of pictures of people sitting in front of a computer playing online casino? No. If I was a restaurant chain or something like that where we engage those sort of things, yes. You know, but once again, that changes and that sort of stuff. Vine, do we use Vine? How much effort do we put into it? You know, Vine's great, but you know, once again, do we have the content? We're making the videos. Vine's a great way for making your videos to share online. Screenshot, do that sort of stuff. So it's about how you embrace new networks and what can it do for your business? You know, I'm a big believer in we're going to concentrate on 3 things really, really well, then 10 things really, really badly. You know, the structure for the next 18 months at BetClick is get Facebook right, get Twitter right. If something else comes along, we'll look at it, we'll analyze it, we'll see how it fits in with our plans and our technology, and then we'll look at moving on from there. So I think social is here to stay. It's a bit like email, then came text. What's after social media? We're just going to have to wait and see.
All right, we just have the one final question here. We're just coming to the end of the time slot. So,
hi. If you compare social media to email marketing, social media adds another dimension, which is direct customer feedback. How much of that is, for example, negative? And how do you deal with that? Do you find that a lot? Do you have like a PR guy that's working on that? Or are you ignoring it? Or you know, do you segmentate this as criticism that we can use? Or
you know, I think part of my roller plan was that for example, Sprout Social will be integrated into customer care. You know, every one of the content people, if they spot a problem, they can refer directly through Sprout to customer care. I'm a firm believer that talk about what you're good at, don't talk about what you know nothing about. You know, content people don't know how to deal with bonus not being added to the account. Refer that straight away to the right people to deal with. Try and take customers offline as fast as you possibly can. You know, really sorry you had that bad experience. Could you private message me your number? Oh, you want to take this offline? No, sir. I need some personal information so I can get this corrected. You sort out those people's problems. You don't have to ask them to go back and say it was sorted. They will go straight back onto social media. All right. And they will say, oh, great customer care. Thank you very much. The important thing about social is if you're running a promotion or you're running an event on social, make sure you give those results out on social. If you promise someone a prize, make sure they get it because they will go straight onto social to complain about it. Okay. So customer care should never, ever be ignored. Okay. You look at customers. Sometimes customers are serial complainers and you can just go on their Twitter history and you can see they complain about absolutely everything. Deal with them. It only makes things easier.
Okay, I think we just have time for a quick comment from Joachim and one from Rasmus as well. So.
Yeah, you mentioned positive and negative. We looked at what people are saying about a particular sportsbook brand, and we categorized it into 5 different categories. The first one being sports and odds, obviously. The second one being payments and promotions, and then 3 others. And the larger part, about 1% of all the mention of it, typically 1 to 3% of the mention of a brand were related to payments, deposits, and things like that. And that sounds like a small number, but when you're talking about the iGaming industry having around 10 million mentions across all brands in English language, that's quite a few potentially problematic mentions. Most of them you will find in forums, you won't find them on Twitter, that you need to deal with.
Rasmus, do you have anything to add on this?
No, I think I agree with the 2 gentlemen here.
Okay. On that note, we've come to the end of the session, and I'd just like to thank all 3 of you for a really excellent panel. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.